We get over to our vehicles, we start loading up, and all of a sudden I hear a scuffle.
I made it here first.
It's always this big clamor.
You two are done with your lives. I'm just ending it. Get a grip on yourself now. Man up and take some accountability and some responsibility.
They wanted us to believe it was a touching moment, a grieving father finally reaching out, a family putting old wounds aside after tragedy. But the truth? What you saw on your screen wasn't the whole story. Behind the polished scenes and soft background music, TLC had already moved pieces around, shuffling the timeline like a deck of cards. What aired as an emotional turning point was actually filmed after Garrison had already passed, then placed earlier in the season to make it look like Kody was having a heartfelt change of heart. It wasn't real. It was editing. For those of us who have followed this family for years, that single fact changes everything. Garrison's death wasn't just a private loss, it was a mirror held up to Kody and Robyn's behavior. It forced fans to look again at all the years of favoritism, neglect, and broken relationships that led to that moment. And when you watch closely, you start to see the threads of a very different story than the one TLC packaged for primetime. Hi friends, I'm Sarah, and this is TLC Sister Wives Daily. If you're new here, welcome, and if you've been here before, you know we don't shy away from the hard truths. Make sure to subscribe and let me know in the comments what you think about what I'm about to share, because this one, it's going to hit hard. When we strip away the edits, the staged reconciliations, and the tearful confessions filmed out of order, we're left with a far more uncomfortable reality. Garrison's passing was a turning point, but not in the way TLC wanted you to think. Instead of a man rediscovering his role as a father, we see years of emotional distance and conditional love catching up to Kody in ways he couldn't control. And while the show hinted at healing, the truth points to something much colder. For years, we've been watching the same heartbreaking pattern play out on Sister Wives, and it's not some sudden twist in the storyline, it's been right in front of us. Kody Brown's parenting has always seemed conditional, especially when it came to his older children. The connection was never direct, never warm. More often than not, any contact or updates about their lives flowed through their mothers, Christine, Janelle, and Mary, while Kody kept himself at arm's length. Think back to Aspen's milestones. We barely saw Kody take an active role, no genuine father-daughter bonding moments, no emotional investment. It was like he was a guest in her life, showing up for the camera but never fully present. And yet, when Robyn's children came into the picture, the difference was undeniable. Suddenly, he was there for every little thing: school events, heartfelt talks, day-to-day parenting. He wasn't just involved, he was devoted. This wasn't about distance or schedules, it was about where Kody chose to pour his energy. While his older kids got a trickle of attention, Robyn's children were showered with time, care, and constant validation. It's no wonder resentment began to brew long before the big blow-ups we saw later, and then, after Garrison's death, TLC tried to stitch together moments of reconnection, those carefully staged scenes where Kody appears to be reaching out, to be the grieving, concerned father. But if you've been watching from the start, you know these weren't the beginning of a healing process, they were a rewrite. The real story is the years of neglect that led here, the absence that was already written into the family's history long before tragedy struck. You know, if you've been watching Sister Wives for years, you probably think you're getting the whole truth, the unfiltered reality of this family's life. But Season 18 proved something fans have long suspected: TLC isn't just documenting events, they're actively rewriting how we see them. Let's talk ABO. The timeline after Garrison's passing. In real life, those moments of Kody suddenly reaching out, showing emotion, and reconnecting with some of his older kids. They didn't happen when the episodes made it seem. TLC slid those scenes backward in the season, placing them before other footage that was clearly filmed months later. Why? To make it feel like Kody had a heartfelt change of heart immediately after tragedy struck. If you look closely, it's almost like two separate realities are woven together. One reality, the raw, tense, and uncomfortable truth, where Kody is still distant, still defending his choices, and still spending the majority of his time with Robyn's household. And the other reality, carefully stitched by editors, where he's suddenly the compassionate, grieving father who's trying, with his older children. Remember the porch conversation with Janelle? TLC placed it right before a sequence of Kody visiting Robyn's kids, giving the impression that his outreach was balanced across the family. But if you compare small details, clothing, weather, even the emotional tone, you can see those events didn't happen in that order. This isn't a mistake, it's an editorial decision designed to soften the blow for viewers who might otherwise turn on Kody completely. And here's the subtle but crucial thing, these edits don't just rearrange time, they rewrite intent. They make his later, delayed attempts at connection seem proactive rather than reactive. They blur the line between genuine remorse and damage control. What TLC doesn't show in full is the long stretches where nothing changed, where calls went unanswered, visits didn't happen, and the emotional chasm stayed exactly the same. Those are the gaps where the real story lives, and those are the gaps that editing quietly erases. An emotional exposé revealing how TLC's editing reshaped the narrative around Garrison Brown's death, masking Kody Brown's long-standing emotional neglect of his older children, especially Garrison, while portraying a false image of conciliation. In contrast to years of favoritism toward Robyn's family and distancing from his other kids, Robyn Brown's role in this family has always been complicated. At least, that's how TLC would like you to see it. But when you strip away the carefully staged interviews and the soft lighting, a much clearer picture emerges. From the very beginning, Robyn seemed perfectly at ease in the position that every other wife dreaded, being the favorite. She didn't just quietly accept Kody's attention, she built her world around it. Season after season, we've watched Robyn navigate plural marriage not as an equal partner, but as the woman whose needs always seem to come first. And every time the family dynamic tilted in her favor, she didn't push back. She let it happen. Sometimes she even seemed to welcome it. Think back to the moments where her pregnancies were met with polite congratulations from the other wives. No big celebrations, no over-the-top enthusiasm. Robyn didn't just notice. She bristled. On camera. Her discomfort wasn't subtle. And instead of asking why her sister wives felt so distant, she leaned harder into Kody's protection. The pattern repeated when tensions grew between her children and the older Brown kids. There were confrontations, real ones, caught on camera, where Robyn's kids voiced resentment and distance. Instead of diffusing the conflict, Robyn often positioned herself as the misunderstood victim, while Kody stepped in to defend her side every single time. It was never about restoring unity, it was about reinforcing their bubble. Over the years, that bubble became the real, main family, inside the Brown household. Robyn didn't just benefit from this power shift, she became a central pillar of it. Every decision Kody made, every relationship he let slip, every child he pushed away, it all fed into the stability and security of Robyn's world. That's the truth TLC's editing can't fully hide, because the footage is there, if you're willing to see it. A fact-based, emotionally charged exposé on how Sister Wives portrays Kody Brown's long-standing emotional neglect of his older children, contrasting his lack of involvement with them against his deep favoritism toward Robyn and her kids, while revealing how TLC's editing manipulates the narrative to soften Kody's image after Garrison's death. The script also explores Garrison's own painful on-camera words, Robyn's role in widening family divisions, and how her past and influence have shaped Kody's attitudes toward divorce and parental alienation, all backed by real events shown in the series. A detailed, fact-based breakdown of how Sister Wives depicts Kody Brown's neglect of his older children versus his devotion to Robyn's family, how TLC edits and schedules episodes, including the mid-season break, to manage audience perception. Especially in the wake of Garrison's death, and how Robyn's influence has shaped Kody's behavior, beliefs, and family dynamics. It blends emotional analysis with behind-the-scenes context, always grounded in actual show footage. Act 8, Christine, Janelle, and the wives' real personalities. When you strip away the public statements, the confessionals, and the carefully managed narratives, what we've seen on Sister Wives over the years paints a strikingly clear portrait of each wife's temperament, and exactly how suited, or not suited, They were for the reality of plural marriage. Janelle has always been the pragmatic one. From the early seasons, she treated polygamy less like a romantic ideal and more like a functional arrangement. She openly admitted she valued her independence, liked having her own space, and didn't need constant emotional validation from Kody. While this adaptability allowed her to survive longer in the arrangement without constant public blow-ups, it also meant she quietly endured years of neglect, especially when Kody's attention skewed heavily toward Robyn's home. We saw her keeping the peace, but the cracks began to show when the pandemic restrictions exposed just how little time Kody was spending with her and the kids. Christine, in contrast, brought warmth, tradition, and a deep need for connection. She loved the idea of sister-wife unity, potluck dinners, shared childcare, holidays together, but she also carried an open vulnerability that made favoritism unbearable. On camera, we've seen her face drop when she was excluded, her voice tighten when Kody downplayed her needs. From her blunt confession that she didn't feel like Kody loved her anymore, to her decision to leave because she didn't want to be in a marriage without intimacy, Christine's journey revealed that her jealousy wasn't pettiness. It was a response to a marriage where she felt consistently devalued. Mary's story has been one of quiet desperation turning into resigned isolation. The early seasons showed her clinging to her legal wife status, taking pride in being the original partner, but as Robyn entered and Kody's focus shifted, Mary was increasingly sidelined. Her attempts to connect with Kody after the catfishing scandal were met with emotional walls. What's aired makes it clear. Mary's jealousy was complicated by her yearning for significance, and instead of being met halfway, she was frozen out. And then there's Robyn. While she's often spoken about unity, the footage tells another story. We've seen her discomfort when the other wives didn't match her enthusiasm for her pregnancies, her defensiveness when her children clashed with the older kids, and her willingness to accept, if not outright encourage, Kody's near-constant presence in her home. Whether it's her "I just want everyone to get along" speeches or her tearful confessionals about being misunderstood, her actions on screen suggest a preference for Str. Where she has Kody's loyalty almost entirely to herself. Together, these on-camera dynamics made one thing impossible to ignore: the problem was never just plural marriage is hard. Impossible to ignore. The problem was never just plural marriage is hard. It was that each wife had fundamentally different needs, expectations, and levels of tolerance for Kody's uneven affection, and Robyn's arrival didn't blend those worlds, it fractured them permanently. Kody Brown will forever be remembered for many things on Sister Wives, but few moments have cemented themselves in the public memory quite like his "knife in the kidneys" and "sacrifices" speeches. It was supposed to be a heartfelt cry from a man who claimed he'd given up everything for his family, but for many viewers, it came off as one of the most self-pitying, ego-driven moments in the entire series. In that now infamous scene, Kody's voice shook with frustration as he talked about feeling betrayed, abandoned, and disrespected by the wives who had chosen to walk away. He painted himself as the ultimate martyr, a man who had carried the burdens of plural marriage alone, only to be stabbed in the back by those who should have been loyal. The "knife in the kidneys" phrase wasn't just dramatic. It was designed to make the wives' choices look cruel and calculated, but when you rewind the tape and look at Kody's track record, a very different picture emerges. Long before Christine's emotional goodbye, before Janelle's quiet but resolute departure, and even before Mary finally admitted the marriage was over, Kody had already started emotionally checking out. The neglect was slow and steady: fewer shared meals, fewer conversations that weren't laced with criticism, and a constant refrain of "you're not loyal enough," instead of real empathy. Even in moments when the wives were clearly hurting, Christine breaking down over feeling unloved, Janelle begging for communication, Mary pleading for even a fraction of his attention, Kody's responses often turned the spotlight back on himself. It was "How can I fix this?" but "look at how you're making me suffer." That pattern made his "sacrifices" speech ring hollow for a lot of viewers. The irony? Kody's so-called sacrifices often came at the cost of the very relationships he claimed to be protecting. He spent holidays with one household while others sat alone. He invested time and emotional energy into Robyn's children, all while creating distance from his own. And when those choices were called out, He reframed them as unavoidable consequences of the wives' lack of loyalty, a neat little rewrite of history that placed all the blame elsewhere. In the end, that knife in the kidneys speech wasn't the moment of raw honesty Kody seemed to think it was. It was a mirror held up to years of emotional detachment, favoritism, and a refusal to take responsibility. And for fans, it confirmed what they'd suspected all along: the sacrifices Kody talked about weren't for the family, they were for maintaining his control and his pride. At the end of the day, what we've witnessed over these seasons isn't just a polygamist family falling apart, it's the carefully edited, highly curated version of that unraveling that TLC has chosen for us to see. And when you peel back the glossy production, the set-up confessionals, and the slow-motion tears, a harsher reality comes into focus. Kody's favoritism toward Robyn wasn't a subplot, it was the plot. His selective devotion, his rewriting of history, and his constant victim narrative have been at the heart of every fracture. And Robyn? She didn't just happen to be at the center. Whether consciously or not, she embraced that role, leaned into it, and let the distance between Kody and the rest of his family grow wider and deeper with each passing year. TLC's edits have shown us enough to spark outrage, but never the whole truth. They give us just enough drama to keep us hooked. Kyle sidestepping the full, unfiltered accountability that this family dynamic truly demands. And maybe that's why so many fans feel so strongly, because we know there's more beneath the surface. So now, it's your turn. What moments stuck with you? Which scenes made you stop and question whether we were getting the real story, or just the version someone wanted us to see? Drop your thoughts in the comments and let's get the conversation going. If you found yourself nodding along, or if you're just as invested in uncovering the truth as I am, make sure you hit that subscribe button and ring the bell. Because here, we're not just watching Sister Wives, we're breaking it down, piece by piece, until we see it for what it really is.